All right, welcome to 2025 and our first Books and Brews Light interview of 2025, which I am saying because I can't for the life of me remember what number we're on. But I am excited to have all the way from, I believe it's Sydney, Australia, Danielle Corrie.
Thank you for having me on Books and Brewers podcast series. Yes, I'm Danielle. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and I'm a published author with the published book Teida Story, Life Through the Eyes of a Dog.
And I'm going to ask you some questions about that, but first I have to introduce what I'm drinking and why. I had forgotten what your book was about, and we had to reschedule this from December. And so in December, it wouldn't have been quite so ironic, but my dog, who I think most of our readers have heard me talk about, she's an Irish Wolfhound. She did pass away just 3 days ago, and she had reached an age. Irish Wolfhounds typically live 6 to 8 years, and she was almost 11. So we were extremely blessed to have her even 3 years beyond what we really could have hoped for. And so the night she died, we toasted her long and wonderful life with 10-year tawny port. And so, although, the elites among us will find this totally horrifying, I'm going to drink my tawny port from my coffee mug. I don't know if you can really see the Irish Wolfhound on it.
Gorgeous. I can see that.
Yeah, this side is a little easier. I love Irish Wolfhounds. And my poor mug is kind of battered because I use it a lot because I do love Irish Wolfhounds. So I don't know. I'm still pretty sad. So maybe I should just keep pouring the whole bottle in there.
Please. But, okay. It's a family.
Right. Luckily, you didn't schedule this for Tuesday. I might have been in pretty bad shape Tuesday. And, your story is about a dog. And so tell our audience, our listeners, more about Teida and who she was and how she came into your life and so on.
Well, Teida is a cross Staffordshire red cattle dog, and a red cattle dog is an Australian breed of dog. And 4 years after my home was broken into, the police advised me to get a dog, and this was many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. And I sort of thought, I was working full time, and I thought, how am I meant to get a dog? I work full time, I have no car to take her to the vet, and when I leave home at like sunrise and I come home after sunset in dark, I'm leaving the dog all by itself, and I didn't think that was right.
Right.
And so what happened is a friend of mine was giving her dog away, and they said to me, I'm giving my dog away, and basically should be put to sleep if she couldn't find a home.
Oh boy.
So she brought the dog over, and the main character, George, in the book, it was a friend of mine. He's also passed away, but before that, I said to him, look, what do I do? And he said, bring the dog over, and you don't have to take the dog, just see what happens. So I brought the dog over. My friend brought the dog over, and this dog was called Teida, and she decided to just drink from the red bucket I had on the back deck and wander around the backyards having different smells. And meanwhile, her owner just decided to disappear out the back gate and drive away and never see her again.
Well, that's one way of giving away your dog.
That's how Teida came into my life. And then we just bonded. Like, she fitted into my lifestyle. I fitted into her lifestyle. I didn't realise till later, but Teida was an epileptic dog, so she needed someone to help her. She had stumbles and falls, and so basically it's like someone being drunk and they stumble and fall. And so once she got to her feet, we took her out the back, she relieved herself, and she was back to herself again. So, but yeah, so there was a few little things like that, and she was fine that I came home late at night and, worked early. There was, after that, my work situation changed, but that's how Teida and I came connected to each other.
And I think a really interesting aspect of this story is that you had a dog phobia. Did you still have, do you want to give a background on that?
I was afraid of dogs when I was young. I was about 9 years old, and I was walking across the road with my sister after buying the Sunday paper, and we're literally meters from home. And there was a main road, then there was our street just up the street, and it's a small dead-end quiet street. And I was crossing the road, and this white Alsatian dog just decided to come and bite me on the side of the leg. And I'm thinking, and there was no yard or anything for this dog. So, but anyway, this dog just decided to bite me on the side of the leg. And from that point on, I was frightened of medium-sized dogs and larger-sized dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Medium-sized dogs, we always had dogs in our home. So the medium-sized dogs I was hesitant of, but there was a larger-sized dogs, probably Labradors and higher.
Right. Now, how bad was the injury? Was it like
a bad injury? It was just like the skin scraped and there was a tiny bit of bruising, but it wasn't drastic. It's just as a little child get a bit of a shock. It's like you're not expecting something like happen as I walk across this road all the time. You know, you go to the shops to buy to the milk bar or to the newsagent or to the baker's, and all of a sudden this dog just decided to come out of nowhere.
Right. And I imagine when you're 9, an Alsatian is like as big as you are, practically.
Actually, yeah, that's right.
When I was living in the outskirts of Minneapolis, we now live in the Appalachians in Tennessee. I taught music lessons to a lot of immigrants, and their experience with dogs was often very different from an American's experience. And so I did have, now speaking of large breeds, Irish Wolfhounds, they're not the biggest dog, but they are the tallest breed in the world. And so most people have never seen a dog as big as she was. She was small for the breed, but she was 110 pounds. And yeah, and to me, I got used to it. So every once in a while, I'd all of a sudden go, she is pretty big. But I was used to her size. But I did have, because I was teaching some lessons in my home, some of these, one parent in particular was just terrified of her. And she was just the gentlest, sweetest dog you could ever hope to meet. But I did have to keep her behind a baby gate, kind of back in the kitchen, because, some people are afraid of dogs. And how did you go about overcoming the phobia?
Well, that's a funny story. My friend George is, basically we belong to a volunteer emergency service organisation called the State Emergency Service, or the SES as it's abbreviated.
Okay.
And I stayed over one night because I had to get up early the next morning and I had no car to get back and forward and things. So he said, look, stay over, here's a room, just here's some blankets, make yourself comfortable. I'll turn off all the security alarms. So, you can have free run of the bathroom and the kitchen and things like that. Mm-hmm. I had the door closed and I heard someone grab something and leave. The next day, I get up I'm in my white nightie, like your white nightwear, hadn't got changed, go to the bathroom, I hear this big noise. I thought, what the hell is this? So I immediately, and it was coming to the back of the building. So I open the back door, walk outside. Now, if you go out the back, there's all the vehicles, there's like crates, and this is big, like 6 foot, even higher fence on both sides. So, and the gate's shut. So once you get in, you can't get out. So what happens is I get to the back gate, I get back to the back part of the building, mm-hmm. The door slams. So I'm stuck in my nightwear. And the next door neighbour has 2 guard dogs, they're German Shepherds, and they're guard dogs. And they bark at anything that goes by. And I peered through the fence and I'm thinking, the light's on, and his name's Charlie, and he's married. And I said, Charlie, and there was no answer. The dogs didn't react. And I'm thinking, great, I need to get to a phone. I need to ring up my friend George and get back into the building.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, so I screamed out Charlie again, and next to the fence was a crate. So I got onto the crate, then I jumped over the fence into the yard, and the dogs just looked at me. Charlie and his wife came out, and I said, look, I need to use the phone. And here were these 2 German Shepherds, and they were totally amazed that they didn't bark or do anything. And that's how I got over my fear.
So it was almost accidental.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. Be- Because usually with the phobia, you have to kind of start small, like just look at a picture of a big dog. And then, so that's amazing that you didn't go into full-blown panic.
Well,
So,
I thought these dogs are going to bark at me, or they'll probably think, who's this Robert jumping into the yard in a white nightie type of thing in the middle of daylight? Like, what's going on?
yeah,
8 o'clock in the
that's
morning. But yeah, that was
that's a
my.
great story. So, what prompted you to write your book about Teida?
Well, Teida and I connected as like you and your dog connected, and I'm sorry to hear about your passing of your dog. I can relate to it totally. Peter passed away similarly. And I wanted to share the bond we had to help others in some small way. So Teida's story is about the story of, it's basically a dog memoir. So it's from when Teida was a pup to her old senior years, and it goes through things like faith, hope, grief and loss, love, but it's from Teida's view. It's written from a dog's view, not from my view as a human. So,
Right,
and I thought, it's nice to actually have a book and just share your experiences with others, and hopefully
right.
that can help someone else when they go through their ups and downs in life and traumas, that their dog or their pet are there for them just like humans are. So if someone hasn't got anybody and they've got their pet, then they can connect and they can help them through what they're going
Right.
through.
Right. I'm very struck, this being very recent and all, how different animals can be. I mean, I've noticed that over the years as we've had cats and dogs, that their personalities can be totally different. But what I really noticed about Liadan, she had the most beautiful, deep golden brown eyes. And when you looked into them, it was like looking into the eyes of a person. So I had golden retrievers before. I grew up with a Keys Hound. We briefly had a dog named Guido. I don't know what he was. He was Saint Bernard and something cross. That dog was crazy, and he was also a danger, unfortunately. And we could never tell if he was actually attacking the cats or if he was intending to play with them. But my twins at the time were 5. And they had no fear about getting between this dog and the animals. And it got to the point he drew blood from someone, and it may have been an accident, but it got to the point where it was dangerous to keep him. And so he was only with us about 2 weeks. But again, his personality totally different from the golden retrievers. I did not realize until I had an Irish Wolfhound that chasing a ball is not necessarily a dog thing. It's particular to certain breeds. And so the first time I threw a stick for a Liadan or a ball, she kind of looked at the ball, looked at me, and was like, well, I guess you better go get that. What'd you do that for? So, yeah, but she's definitely was a very unique dog. And I got her from a family in Cincinnati, which was, I think, about a 15-hour drive from where I lived at the time. And they had gotten a new landlord, and the landlord said, you can't have your dogs anymore. So they had to sell her when she was 8 months old. And so my husband and I drove. He wasn't my husband at the time, but we drove overnight. And he had told me she's scared of cars. She doesn't really like cars. But she jumped out of their car. We opened the back of ours, and she jumped right in. And it was like this dog just knew that. So it's quite a story. And it sounds like you had sort of a similar experience with Teida.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. There is a funny story with the car with Teida.
Yeah.
I didn't know how she behaved in the car, and I had to take her to the vet. I didn't have a car, so George brought his car over, and he's got a station wagon. And so he put her in the boot of the car, and he's whistling a tune. And basically what happens is whistling away, and this is on the way home as we're parking in the driveway. He's whistling a tune, just whistling, and Teida jumps from the back of the boot into the middle of the car and lands in his driveway, lands in his basically in the lap, lands
Oh,
in his
how
lap.
funny. While he's driving.
While he's driving, while he's pulling the car up in the driveway, we didn't realise that besides calling her name Teida, that when you whistle, she actually comes to as well.
Oh, that's hilarious. So how big was Teida?
She's a medium-sized dog, about 20 kilos, and she was a solid dog. She was medium size, about 20 kilos in weight.
Okay, so how did that work, squeezing in between him and the
Well, she kind
steering
of
wheel?
squashed in between you got the passenger side and you got the driver's side, and she went in the middle there and then decided to jump on his lap because he whistled. And so I'm saying to him, don't whistle, don't whistle.
So, what would be sort of a highlight of your book? You know, do you tell various stories of her life, with various incidents, or is it more of kind of a single plot? Like how does this work?
Basically from when she was starts from when she was young, starts from how I got Teida, and various moments throughout the life. There is parts, for example, I called it George, myself, and Teida as the Three Musketeers, and George was a platonic friend. He had a family of his own. So, but he helped Teida adjust to my home. So when I worked full time, he would come over in his spare moments and just help Teida adjust. She loved playing ball in the backyard, so we'd play ball in the backyard, or, come inside, the lawn might be mowed, so he'd bring her inside. So things like that, just little things like that just helped her adjust. And as I said before, if I didn't have a car at the time, so I'd call on him to say, look, can you help me take her to the vet? So there's things like that he played a role in. And Teida's story is about from when Teida was a pup to her senior years, and it shares good times, bad times, happy times, sad times. There are moments where you laugh, and there are moments where you may cry. And so,
right.
And so there's little stories from then to there, so at the end she does pass away.
Okay. And is part of your goal just to help other pet owners, say, deal with their pet dying, or to deal with
it's not with their pet dying, but just dealing with all aspects of life. I was made redundant at work. I bought my own house. I made redundant at work, and my mum, dad, my parents were divorced, and to have a dog at that time really helped me through those sort of milestones that you go through, those ups and downs in life where you feel you're alone, have nobody, and then Teida's looking at you, wagging her tail, saying, Mum, everything's going to be fine. Let's play some ball. Let's do this, and she's right. Like you learn from a dog, and I say a dog because I had a dog, but any pet, any animal, and they read off your energy. So if you're happy, they're happy. If you're anxious about them, they're anxious too. So, and you learn about how to connect with your animal or your pet, and you become one with each other. And that's what I want to share in that book is.
Yeah. So it sounds like a wonderful book. Do you have a reading ready to go?
I do. Okay. Teida, let's play ball. Go and get your new ball, Teida. Where's the ball? Where's the ball, Teida? With all other toys and balls nowhere to be seen on the grass, I know exactly which ball George wants to play with. George wants to play with my new pink ball, the one he gave me for Christmas. I stand looking blankly at him. Teida, where's the ball? Mother watches from inside. I can see her standing at the kitchen sink. She must be making George a cup of coffee. She comes outside, puts George's cup of coffee on the table. Do you know where Teida's ball is? Has she chewed it up already? George asks his mother with some annoyance in his voice. Not that I'm aware of, Mother responds. Teida, what have you done with your new ball? You couldn't have destroyed it already. George and Mother wander around looking in the garden beds, searching down the side of the house. They even put their heads underneath the house, rummaging everywhere before eventually giving in, resigned to the fact that the pink ball is lost forever. We have searched everywhere and cannot find the ball, Teida. Play with this one instead. I'll have to get you another one, George says, sitting on the bench out on the back deck. Not long afterwards, I appear from underneath the house, holding on to my Christmas present. There's no way I'm going to lose such a special toy, one given with so much love. The expressions on their face say it all. Mother and George were in total awe. I was playing another version of hide and seek, dog style.
That's fun. So, how did you go about trying to get into a dog's mind?
Well, I remember you have special moments that you have with your dog or your pet. And like this little significant moments, a lot of the time when you're at home, you remember, you see what happens with that dog. So
Right.
you might be bathing the dog and you know their habits. So you might be playing ball with the dog or they might be running around your backyard, take them for walks. So there's little antidotes, there's little stories that happen. And you put it all together, you write it. Now, I had no idea how to write a book. I failed English at school. My favourite subject was mathematics. And many, many years later, there was a course called Write Your Book in a Weekend. And I thought, okay, I'm going to try and do this. I can write a book, So I started writing, and the teacher said to me, you've done everything all about face. You need to describe, not tell. So instead of saying the dog had a bone, you describe a scene, like on the lush green grass on the middle of a summer's day, there is my dog Teida eating a bone that I'd given to her early in the morning. So the reader, like yourself, can imagine the scene. And so I'm writing, and so I had to redo the whole thing. And then I took it back to the lady who facilitated the course. She said to me after the course that she would be happy to mentor me a little bit with my book. Mm-hmm. So I got more feedback afterwards. And then afterwards, I had this big wad of paper with this writing, and I didn't know that it would be published. I had no idea what it would come to. And I needed someone outside to just look at it, read it from top to bottom, put the red pen through it, give me feedback. And I came across a friend of mine who does writing as part of his work. And I asked him if he could proofread it. And he goes, sure, I'll proofread it. And I said, look, it's a big wad of paper. Are you sure? He goes, well, I'm going to have to critique it. And I said, that's what I need. I needed someone to know whether it's actually worth, is it just something that I'm writing for personal reasons, or do you think it's going to get, a manuscript that's worth putting out there to the big wide world? Mm-hmm. And he looked at it and he put scribbles through it. My tenses were out. I'd repeated myself. There was bits that he didn't understand. And I thought, well, if you couldn't understand it, then understand it like yourself or anyone else. So I went back to the drawing board and took all the feedback that he gave me. But what he said was, keep going, you are a good writer. This is really good. You're a good writer, keep going. And that's what spurred me on even further. So I rewrote it again. And I then decided to self-publish Teida's story, because self-publishing was the big thing at the time. And when you publish something, it was virtually impossible. And so I thought, but when you self-publish, you have to go out, knock on people's doors, knock on businesses' doors and say, I've got a book. Do you want to put it in your bookstore? And the store, and they'll say, well, I want to read it first. And I'll say, no, you can't read it. You need to buy it. And they say, no, I need to read it first. And I want to know if it's good enough. And so I just came to a dead end. And then I came across a friend, someone I know who published their book, and they gave me contacts with New Holland publishers. New Holland publishers wanted my manuscript. And they were in deliberation too, because my book, even though it's non-fiction, because it's told in the eyes of a dog, is actually fiction, and they predominantly publish non-fiction books. They decided to take the risk and publish it, and that's how it got published. So it took 8 years in the end to do everything.
As I mentioned, I'm brand new in this office space, and
you're doing well. You're doing well.
Well, I'm getting a bigger desk later. It's on order, and it's I kind of have a medieval theme going up here, since my books are set in medieval times. And so I guess dragons aren't really medieval, but they're associated with that time. So I've got some dragon lamps over there. But right now, the desk space I'm working with is very small. And so I have this lamp very carefully balanced to give some light to this. And all of a sudden, it just toppled over. So
that's probably your dog saying that, look, I'm here, Mum.
Right.
Times like that, they give you signals if you're into that sort of thing, to say, I'm here.
I'm hoping, my husband went out, was it the first evening The vet got here maybe about 1:30, and because we can't even get her into the car anymore to take her to the vet, and it was nicer for her to be at home anyway. But we have a tractor, and so he had already dug the hole. And so when we left Minnesota a year and a half ago, not even a year and a half ago, that was my biggest fear, was that she was going to die before we left. And so that's another thing. I'm so grateful that she's here with us. And so we have a little section that she is buried in. And
that's lovely.
we're on. Right. I thought about putting her down with our rabbit. We had one rabbit that died, and but I didn't want her buried that far down because we're on 21 acres. And so she's quite a bit closer to the house, and I can look out my sunroom and see her and wave to her. But the first night after she died, my husband went up to the mailbox to get the mail, and he said he swore he could sense her just running free again because, as you probably know, the issue with these big dogs often ends up being their hips. So, she was actually fairly healthy, apart from the fact that she was falling apart. And her back
that's what happens, right?
Yeah, no, she really, if it weren't for those back legs, I think she would have lived forever. She didn't have cancer or anything like that. She didn't have any health issues that I knew of, but her back legs were giving out. And just after Christmas, after my stepdaughter left, it was like she was just waiting to see those kids one last time. And then she just kind of went downhill, and I was having to lift her up, by her waist, her belly, and help her get up. And then it got to the point where I was having to almost lift her front half too to get her to go up. Our stairs are really shallow going up to our porch, but she had slipped on them a couple of times and she was afraid. And so, here I am. She hadn't eaten as well, so she was probably maybe around 100 pounds by then, but I was having to practically lift this big, long, gangly 100-pound dog up the stairs. And, she was clearly in pain. She was living on pain medication and all that. So first time in my life I've really had to make this decision. So
I understand you. That's a terrible thing to do.
I'm what?
Similar with Teida.
Yeah.
I had to put on down on New Year's Eve when she died. It was New Year's Eve and the vet, similarly to you, had to come over. I wasn't going to take her anyway. I was in no state. And she looked at me to say, Mum, I can't do this anymore. It's time. Can you help me? And that's similar with your dog. You look into her eyes and say, she'll tell you. And that's what the dogs do. They'll tell you with their eyes and with their energy, look, Mum, I need your help.
Right. And she was very much, especially to my husband, she seemed to be looking at him like that a lot. And when the vet gave her the first muscle relaxant, my husband her head was on my lap, but he was sitting kind of across from us. And he said he could just see all the tension just drain out of her body, and once she was gone, the way he and I said it, it was like I had become the frog in the boiling pot because, first it was one little extra thing, then another, then another, then another. And I just, I feel bad saying it, but I also realized my days have become consumed both emotionally and physically, and my back was, trying to lift 100-pound gangly dog, not an easy thing to do. I was doing laundry for her every single day because she had lost control. So it was getting to the point she wasn't going out. She only pooped in the house on her bed. She didn't, she would always go outside to do the other. But she was reaching the point where she was trying to hold it for 24 hours or more. And I'm thinking, she's going to be poisoned with her own toxins. Otherwise, I have to almost carry her out. And so it really did become necessary. And I think, is that something you sort of address in your book, how how one finally makes that decision.
Well, in my book, I went to an animal communicator at the end because I thought, look, you know, because I looked at Teida and I knew it wasn't time, but I knew she was getting towards time. And I'm sort of thinking, will she last till Christmas? Like it was probably 6 weeks to go. She did have a bit of a seizure and it could be a mini stroke. I don't know what it was, but she was out in the back and I fractured my foot sort of like earlier that year. My mum died in June and I fractured my foot and it took me 6 months to heal, believe it or not, because of the mistreatment the medical team gave me, but that's another story. Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't virtually get Teida from the backyard inside. And I'm thinking, how am I going to, and it's just one step, like it's just one step into the back deck. I thought, get her to the back deck, I can get her over to inside. And I had a neighbour come and I had someone else come. My family came later, but Teida actually made it. She got up herself and made it. Mm-hmm. And I knew she was declining, but I thought, can she just make it till Christmas? Because then I have one final Christmas, and she did. And that I thought that'll just be my Christmas present if she just makes it till Christmas.
Right.
But in the end, I knew, and it was like, the end was like, can people look after Mum because now I'll be on my own. Right. I found it difficult to even sometimes just walk outside to put the clothes on the line because there's no dog following me, or even you open the door and there's no dog saying, you know, I'm home, you know, wagging their tail and, you know, walking around because you came home, or, you know, things like that. One thing I did do, though, and something that you might do, I held a wake. People have a funeral. I held a wake, and it was just with key people that were significant. And we just shared memories over a cup of coffee, cup of tea. You know, it was an afternoon tea thing, and people joined in via Zoom, and we just shared memories.
Yeah. I sent my kids an email asking them to send me some memories, and I'm putting together a video. So I know a lot of people hate AI, but I'm using it I wrote my own lyrics, but I'm using it to set music to the lyrics.
That's lovely. I'm not one to hate AI. I agree with you. I'm not one to dislike it. So I'm on your page.
You know, I think it's a tool like anything else. And the fact is, my degree is in music. I'm quite capable of writing a song, but I'm also trying to do 500 other things. So,
did you play an instrument as well? When you say you teach music?
Yeah. I play lots of instruments. My main instrument was trombone. So I used to play in pit orchestras and symphony orchestras. I played in a jazz band, well, a couple different ones, but I played in one of them for 3 years. And, then I would play flute with the church choir. Sometimes I played harp with the church choir, and I'm just getting back into playing music again. So,
do you sing? Like, are you able to sing as well, or is it just instrumental?
I don't really like to sing in public. Like, I'll sing in church when everyone else is, but no, I'm more of an instrumentalist. I taught a lot of piano for 32 years. So,
right.
And Liadan didn't like certain pitches. You got above a certain pitch and she would start to sing along. So, you know, that's when you were talking about getting used to the dog not being there, I'm still in that stage where I come in from taking care of the other animals, throw open the door, and I'm ready to say, hi, my girl, I'm back. And it's like, she's not there. So I'm still in that stage of, my mind is still telling me she's there. I turn around to see her on the couch, and of course she's not there. So I did want to ask, you know, how did you get from having trouble in school with essays and comprehension? What changed that you could suddenly write a book?
Well, I just, at school, which was probably 20, 30 years before, the teachers, you know, I'd get 12 out of 20 to write an essay because I'm too logical, according to them. You know, like, I'm someone that writes things straight to the point. I didn't know about describing, and people would waffle. Like, if you had to say you had to write something for 1,000 words, I'd probably get to 700 words and stop. It's like, how do I expand it? I didn't know what to do. And so I'd avoid all the essay subjects. I loved reading. I'd immerse myself in books. I'm good at spelling. I'd write letters. So instead of the Facebook and the social media, you'd have pen and paper, and you'd have pen pals, and you'd write to people overseas. Right. And so I did all that. Now, I never thought I could write a book. I just decided to put pen to paper and put words together and see what happens. And it eventually came into a book. So I never thought of my school, comprehension or essay writing next week. That was what they thought. And I just said, okay, I'm not going to write and see what happens. And then it turned out.
That's a powerful statement you just made. That's what they thought. Because there's so many people with stories like this. Like I believe Thomas Edison is one of them who, when he was in school, they thought he was a complete fool, probably in those days sat in the corner with a dunce's hat on most of his school life. And yet he had this amazing mind. But anyway, I found that an interesting part of your story and a great statement to say, who cares? Sometimes teachers are right, but, plenty of times they're wrong. And sometimes people grow into who they're going to be, and what their accomplishments are going to be. So I think it's a very inspirational story you have.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Another part was just the healing process as well, because Teida died, my friend George died, my mum passed away, and I'm just writing, and I thought, well, if I can write it as a healing thing to write special memories, and even with your dog, if you write, you might want to record it now. Back then, when I was writing, there was not much audio books and things like that compared to now, but even if it doesn't have to be a book to publish, but just to pass on to future generations, whether it's about your dog, whether it's about your home, how you came to live where you are. Everybody has a story they may want to share with somebody. And that's how I see writing. And it could be just, a book of recipes or even things like that, tips in the garden, So it just depends on what you like. And, if you want to pass it on to your children and then pass it on to their children, at least they've got something of you going forward.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I think just writing things down is very healing. And I've been journaling since I was 13, and I think it's a big reason why I have never really felt the need for therapy, because there's something very healing about it.
I journal all the time like you, so I can relate.
Yeah. So do you think that you will be writing another book, or is this kind of...
I'm hoping to. I'm in the middle of another manuscript, and it would be great to get that published as well. So, but I'll leave it up to, divine timing. When that happens, it will happen. And
what is the next book about?
It's more of a personal nature book. So it's about trials and tribulations and about empowerment and how I got through, say, for example, things at school to become the person I am now. So it helps other people. So it's a different topic altogether.
And are you referring to the fact that there was some bullying when you were in school?
There was a bullying at school, and that's another thing, because I was of Lebanese heritage. I am of Lebanese heritage, and I'd take, for example, Lebanese bread with, a spread we call Vegemite. It could be like peanut butter or something else, and you roll it up and you take it there, and I look and say, what's that? Because it's so foreign. And they make fun of you and they don't want to sit next to you at lunch, for example. So today, it doesn't matter today. Today, everybody can take whatever they like to eat, and everybody says, I can try some. So it's totally different back in the day. Did you move
to Australia from Lebanon?
No, I was actually born here. My parents were born here. I was born here. It was my grandparents, and further back, that was from Lebanon.
Okay, but you didn't know what some of these things were that other Australians were eating?
Oh, we had both. We had both. But there are times where you take your own heritage food. Other people would, say, from Chinese, and they might take a plate of fried rice from home one day, because it might be left over from home.
So I think I misunderstood. So they didn't know what it was you were eating.
Yeah, well, they made fun of what I was eating, at lunch.
Okay.
So another example would be my older sister. I'm the oldest, and my younger sister went to school the next year, and I was looking forward to having someone to play with at recess and lunchtime. And then, so she would come and sit down with me, and I say, what's an older sister hanging out with a younger sister? Go away, leave her alone. So you feel like you're just left alone, and you'd be the last one to pick in a team. People didn't want to invite you to birthdays, even though you invited to their birthday. So it was all these little things that built up over time that...
Yeah. And what would be your best advice to somebody who's dealing with that right now? How would you advise they cope with that, not internalize it?
Now there's a lot more avenues for people to cope with, except there are schools that more, that can be challenging, I say. Tell your mum and dad, tell the school, and even if it means pulling the child out of school, because there's a lot more social media now, and there's a lot more bullying on computers, social media, texts, all that kind of thing. So back in the day, it was just face-to-face anyway. And I would actually try and, tell a grown-up, to be honest. Tell your mum and dad, tell somebody.
Right.
If it's a school, go to, get your mum and dad and go to the principal and sort it out. And if the principal says nothing, then go to the education department. Like, take it as high as you can and be that line that protects your child.
Right. I think that's very important. And when I was growing up, I did not get that. Now, normally, I think I was, I don't want to say I was born with an attitude, but usually if anyone tried to bully me, I was in the military. We moved around a lot, so I was always the new kid. And I just kind of had an attitude like, why would you even do that? Like my very first experience of racism was actually when I was at a school that was probably about 85% Black, and a girl called me a cracker in third grade.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I don't think I had ever heard the word. I got that it was supposed to be an insult, but I just started laughing like, why would you call me that? What a ridiculous thing. And then I told the story on another Books and Brews. When I was in fifth grade, there was a sixth grade boy who always, as we were walking home, would always say, look, there's Frankenstein. Well, I don't know how in fifth grade I actually knew that. I actually knew that Frankenstein was the doctor, not the monster. And so I would always reply, and there's the monster he made. And this kid didn't know. And I just thought, you're not too bright, are you? So he was kind of trying to bully me, unless he liked me and just wanted my attention. I don't know. But it didn't work.
I just didn't care. All the time. That was good.
Yeah. So, I think I ended up, and probably partly because I had that attitude, I didn't really get bullied. And I think, too, I moved around so much, even if anyone wanted to bully me, I was going to be gone pretty soon anyway. So, kind of didn't matter. So you do have a few short stories out. Do your short stories also tend to be about dogs, or what themes do you write on?
I have short stories out there that are about all different topics. So I had one, The Urban Field Naturalist, and basically they're about nature. And I had another stories about, and so basically it's about my experience. So the recent one I had was through the Relatable Voice magazine, an international magazine. I hadn't had a story through that before. And I wanted a Christmas-themed story, so it was about Christmas. And my uncle recently passed away, and they wanted it fiction. So I decided to do a twist on the fact of, it's called Dad's Christmas Gift.
Okay.
And it's an online magazine, and it was about, for example, I didn't know what to buy Dad for Christmas, and it was the last day before Christmas, and I asked Santa, are you able to bring Grandpa down from the sky and have dinner with us at Christmas? And that was
interesting.
That was what I made it to be. So that was my latest published story.
Neat. And so I believe some of these stories, or at least links to them, are on your blog. Where can people find you?
On my website. On my website, it's daniellecorrie.com.au. You can search it through there. Or I do have Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and other social media pages, so people can find me anywhere. YouTube,
Fantastic. Anyway. Yep. And people can find me at booksandbrews.net. We have our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@booksandbrews. I am at lauravosica.com. And our sponsor, Gabriel's Horn, is at gabrielshornpress.com. And because it is vitally important to look at adorable sheep, you can go to glenmerrillfarms.wordpress.com and you can look at our sheep and our rabbits, and they're about the cutest thing ever. And our other dog is a Bernese Mountain Dog named Boo Bear, because we got him just before Halloween. He's completely white and he's going to be the size of a bear, so Boo Bear.
Wow.
And there are pictures of Liadan there too. So I would like to ask people to please like, share, and subscribe. Help us grow so that we can bring our wonderful authors to more people. And thank you very much for being a guest. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, wait.